So I want to start off by saying welcome back to the channel, and if you're new here, welcome. If you're a fanatic of everything entertainment, this is the channel for you, but in today's movie review, we'll be talking about 2002's 28 Days Later. So let's get into it. So with 28 Years Later coming out, I was thinking, I haven't really talked about any of these movies at all with the 6, 7 years that I've been on this channel, so I thought today would be like a great time to talk about these movies. So we're starting with the classic, the best so far in the franchise, 28 Days Later. This movie does mean a lot to me, so with that said, let's move on to the things that I did like about this movie. So the first thing I want to bring up is the first scene in here with the activist releasing the chimpanzee. And the reason why I like that is because that feels like the most realistic depiction of a zombie or infected type film. Um, I don't know. I don't know if it was very insensitive, but I was thinking about talking about these movies whenever COVID started. I did watch that around the time, so I was like, this is really crazy to think about and to watch this right now, especially with everything that was going on. But that first scene, even when the scientist tells him that the ape is infected or the chimp's infected, they don't listen. I mean, I get why, but like, they don't listen, and they're the start of the virus. They release it into the world. I love the iconic imagery in here, especially with our introduction to Jim, played by Cillian Murphy, which is one of my favorite actors of all time. But him walking around the streets of London, I believe, I don't know, it's so iconic, especially with how they made it. I think they went at like 4 or 5 in the morning when it was like the least busy part of the day where they can actually get some of these shots, and I thought it was pretty impressive, especially with such a small budget that they have. They do a lot with so little. And speaking of those scenes, I love the scene whenever Jim goes into the church. That has like one of the scariest moments of my childhood, and it still like gives me creeps to this day. Like, everyone says the church scene in 28 Days Later is creepy because the music used in there, but especially when Jim calls out hello and then those two zombies or two infected people like rise up. That's some scary shit, dude. Like, it's something that stuck with me for the last almost 20 years, and it still gets to me quite a bit.
Hello?
I also love our introduction to Selena and Mark where they save Jim when he's being chased by those infected people coming from the church, and that whole scene too where they blow him up. That's crazy. But yeah, speaking of Selena and Mark, Selena is one of the best parts of this movie. Mark, I wish we got a bit more of him. Um, because at first he comes off as like a dick, but then like as soon as you start to get to know him, he dies. Which, yes, we'll be talking about spoilers. I'm very sorry about that. But he dies, and like his death is crazy because Selena just offs him. Not even a heartbeat. She just goes after it after she finds out that he's infected. She doesn't know that he's infected until she looks into his eyes, and his eyes says everything. So like that whole scene too, especially with them taking Jim to his parents' house, that's a bit heartbreaking. And then like not as heartbreaking as the scene that we'll get into later. The characters in here are also, something that you tend to latch on to, especially Jim, played by Cillian Murphy, Selena, played by Naomi Harris, and then one of my favorite characters in here, Frank, played by Donald Gleason. He is the emotional backbone to this movie, and when his death scene occurs, which is the most emotional gut punch that this movie has, is his death, because like his last words is telling his daughter that he loves her, and to get back because he doesn't want her seeing what he's about to become, because the virus like spreads so fast. That's another thing that I like about this movie is because they change it up. Yes, it's fast zombies or fast infected, whatever you want to call it, but the way that it spreads so fast and the way that you can get in contact with a virus is crazy. It's not just a bite. If any of their blood or spit or whatever gets inside of you somehow by your mouth or your eyeball, if it gets in you, either way, you're fucked. And you only have 10 to 20 seconds before like you need someone to kill you or else you turn. Crazy. And yes, I brought this up. Running zombies or running infected. That comes into play with the tunnel scene. That is something that stuck with me for so long that, when I started playing zombie games like Days Gone, one of the first missions of that game, you go through a tunnel with your motorcycle. And like, I couldn't not think about 28 Days Later and how like intense that that whole scene gets. It's something that like I've always been a fan of, and it's like one of the first things I think about when thinking about or talking about 28 Days Later. So that's a scene that stuck with me, and I love when others try to incorporate it either in another movie or a video game. And this movie does have the classic trope of the real monsters being people, and from the first zombie movie, that's become a thing. Like Night of the Living Dead, the people were the real monsters of that story. Same with 28 Days Later. Same with The Walking Dead. Speaking of The Walking Dead, I don't know when the comic books came out, but that first episode with Rick coming out of the hospital, that is so 28 Days Later. But that's besides the point. Like the trope of like humans being the real monsters, that's something that you can always latch yourself upon to, and that comes into play in the third act. The third act, I used to put the soldiers in the negatives because I hated them so much, but then when I started to think about it, I'm like, you have really good villains if you really hate them. And 28 Days Later, no different. Absolutely hate the soldiers because they want to take advantage of the women because they want to repopulate the earth. And I just found it disgusting. But it's a positive because, like, you need a villain that you hate. And, same case with this movie. Another thing in here that I love is the theme song. I forgot the name of it. It's on the tip of my tongue, but like, I feel like they use that in trailers to like video games or other movies. I don't remember, but like, when I think about this theme song, I always think about it in the context of 28 Days Later. And speaking of Jim and Selena, I love the relationship that they build, especially, throughout the film because Selena comes off as to one that's like to each their own, if you slow me down, you're going to slow me down and I don't need you in my life whatsoever, but it tends to like pick itself up and she falls for Jim, but she doesn't just fall for Jim. She starts to like accept her little family that she has with Frank, with Hannah, with Jim. I love that she comes around to it, and then I love that there's like this romantic angle um, in the later half of this movie, and I'm just a fan of it. And last but not least, the ending scene in here, you see them escape the facility, and it sort of does like a cliffhanger for a few seconds because, like, once you see that they make it through the gate, they smash through the gate, that it automatically stops, and you see like Jim and Selena falling forward in the back seat of the car. Um, when I first saw this movie, I'm like, they can't end it like that, and thankfully they don't. Like, it picks up 28 days later, and they get to give off their message saying hello to um, the army or the air force. When they see him on the jet. Which, funny enough, Jim sees it earlier on when they try to banish him from the facility, and that gives him hope. And the fact that they tie into that at the very end, spectacular. So with that said, let's move on to the things that I'm mixed on. And the only thing that I'm mixed on is before I get into it, this actress used to be in my negatives, but upon rewatch, I'm putting her in the mixed, and that is Hannah, played by Megan Burns, which she's only done like one movie before this and a short film after this, and then she had like one album come out after this, one or two albums, and has done nothing since. And not to sound a certain way, but it shows. Okay, she was in one movie before this and short film after this. I do need to give those a chance to see if like her acting, if it was just this movie or like she actually can act. The reason why I'm putting it in mixed is because she has such a great relationship with her dad in here. And like I said, that is the emotional backbone to this film. Her and Frank, especially Frank, but like you get to see how much he loves her and willing to do anything for her. And I will say her performance is a bit wooden, and I'm saying this because it feels like she gives the same performance as when her character is sober or under the influence, which is really weird to me. I don't know if anyone else noticed that. Like, I didn't see that big of a difference in performance when her character is supposed to be sober and under the influence. So that's really mean to say, but like I want to know if anyone else sees that. But I will say she does great at the very end of this movie, which is like too late for me to care, but like that last scene where they have that tarp out saying hello, she did great in that. And then like the movie ends and I'm like, damn, I was starting to come around to her. But that's the reason why it's in the mix because she does so great in that last scene and then like the relationship with her dad, it's sweet. So like I can't be too harsh on it, but I used to be. I used to be, okay? I might come off as harsh right now, but I don't mean it to be like that. Because I do want to give her a chance, like in other movies and short films, and I might even want to check out her music. So with that said, let's move on to the things that I didn't like about this movie. I'm going to get into my biggest criticism next, but the first thing I want to get into is some of the quick, weird editing, especially with the action sequences. It just feels so scattered and all over the place. And sometimes you can't even see what's going on. It is that janky. There's like a jump cut every second, maybe like every half second to something else when there's like an action sequence. And I just wasn't a big fan of it. It comes off as very early 2000s, and it sort of does take away for some of the kills, except for one. That eyeball smash, when Jim puts his fingers into the dude's eyeballs. Best kill of the movie. Absolutely loved it. But everything else I felt was sort of ruined by some of the editing. And the last thing I want to bring up in here, which is something that a lot of people talk about when talking about this movie, especially like as of recent. Maybe not in the early 2000s or late 2000s, but especially as of recent. The cameras used in here will forever age this movie, okay? This movie came out in 2002 and they shot this in 2001, so this is one of the first mainstream movies to be shot digitally, and it shows because they didn't use the best of cameras for this. Now, I will say I haven't watched the Blu-ray, but I've owned a VHS copy and I wish I still had it. And I recently watched this on DVD. So, like, this movie is putrid. It's ugly. And, I mean, you can have movies that are great. This movie is great. You can have movies that are putrid and ugly, but also have, like, great camera quality at the same time. I think this was shot on 720p. I was thinking 480, but I heard 720 out there somewhere. So like, I might have to watch the Blu-ray because I heard some of the London scenes in the beginning looked decent, but like, and the last scene was shot on film. So like, maybe it might benefit from that. There's something that doesn't make sense to me is that there's a 4K coming out, and as someone that loves 4K, which all these are 4K, okay, like I love 4K. 28 Days Later will not benefit from a 4K disc at all whatsoever. Like, it doesn't make sense that this movie's going to be in 4K. I don't know if they're going to upscale it to 4K or how they're going to do that, or if it's going to be AI like with Jaws 3D, which I still haven't seen that conversion yet. But, like, it just doesn't make sense to me. Like, how is 28 Days Later going to be on 4K when they shot this on 720p and it just looks so ugly? But with that being said, I'm going to be giving 2002's 28 Days Later an overall grade of an 86%. But yeah, this movie was a great reinvention of the zombie slash infected genre of film. And I don't care what you call it. If you call it zombies or infected, I don't care because I grew up calling this zombies and then like I got shit from people for calling it zombies and there says infected. So I totally get it, but like this did reinvent the zombie genre. So I have nothing but respect for this movie and what it did for the genre. And I can't wait for 28 years later, and I cannot wait to check out 28 weeks later because this will be my first time watching it. I'll be watching it either tonight or tomorrow, and then I can't wait to see 28 years later. I'm hoping to see it with Cody Leach. It just all depends on like if certain things pop up in my life beforehand or not. But either way, I'm excited to check it out because I will be checking it out either way this weekend. So like I can't wait. But as always, I just want to say thank you for watching my videos and hope to see you in the next one.